One of the biggest games of this half of 2015 is going through its beta. Its second beta, but its first beta of 2015. Aaron Sampson, Ryan Schubert, Battlefield experts here in the office are here to talk to us about Battlefield Hardline. First of all, you've been playing this beta. You guys play all of the Battlefield games here in the office. Aaron, what do you think about this beta in comparison to what came out after E3 last year?
It's a big improvement. Visceral sat down with their original beta, which was supposed to be an actual beta.
Yeah.
And they got a lot of very aggressive fan feedback, and they took that fan feedback and just really, really tightened all like the mechanics and the experience. So they've done a really good job in listening to their fan base.
Has anything changed like majorly in terms of the game modes available, guns available, how stuff plays, or is it like the intricacies of the game modes themselves?
Yeah, so there was a huge change in heist mode where what used to happen is people would run in, they'd grab the cash, and then they'd immediately go to the exit points and win. And that was it just was like over in an instant. So they basically made the exit points also random, like they rotate around the map, and you have to capture them.
Okay, cool.
Over time. Excuse me. So battles happen both in the bank and then at the capture points. It elongates the matches.
Ryan, you've been playing as well for a bit today.
Yeah, a little bit today. The heist feels a little bit chaotic, but I feel like that's also everybody still learning. You know, like it seems to have an interesting sort of balance of like an objective-based mode with more or less a team deathmatch, because you know there's players that are trying to move the cache to the escape point, but there's also just a constant firefight happening
all over the place.
Yeah, because like in the case, I don't know if it's going to be different on the other maps when they come out, but like in this case, the map is small enough that where the police spawn and where the criminals spawn, like they're not that far apart. You're going to be back in the firefight in a matter of moments.
Excellent. That was one thing
that
irked me a bit about the other beta was trying to get back into the sort of the big melee that seemed to be happening in one sort of area. Chris, yourself and Aaron worked on a really good video last week about the sort of the core mode that's in Battlefield Hardline. One of the problems maybe with 3 and 4 was that they didn't really have their sort of tentpole, this is the thing you want to be playing. Can you speak to that? Like, what did you like about Heist?
So actually, the mode that I wrote about was Hotwire.
Oh yeah.
Heist seems like, oh, it's cops versus criminals. It's going to be the bank robbery. It's going to be, you know, some variant on that kind of thievery. It's going to be everyone tries to grab money faster than other people. But I think in terms of the Battlefield experience, Hotwire is going to be the one that people gravitate towards. It's going to be the one that creates those crazy moments, like way more often, that really sort of fuel people coming back to see what's going to happen next.
What happens in Hotwire?
Hotwire is basically Conquest with cars as the capture points. So they're mobile. And so instead of going to a position, like setting up, defending it, or assaulting a position that's a set place, you have to chase down a car. You have to hop in a car, and in order to gain capture points, you have to be driving it at like 30 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So you can't just park it behind a building. So there's no like static state in Hotwire. There's no like, oh, I'm just gonna sit on this capture point until the enemies come and then gun them down, because you have to be driving. And by you know, you could be trying to do your loop out on the side of the map, but you're gonna like stuff is gonna be happening. So I think for me, the thing that frustrated me about Conquest was so many of the players would get in there, capture a point, and then be like, woohoo, we got it, off to the next point, woo! And then like just give up that capture point, whatever. And so it was just this constant churn. And I think because Hotwire, those capture points are active, it seems to really have to be that answer for that nervous kind of frenetic pace.
One of the things I remember you saying before, Aaron, when the trailer for Hardline first came out, was that you were very critical of the like vehicle-to-vehicle ground combat that was in Battlefield 4. And you were saying, I wonder how they're going to be able to do this, because like some of the weapons, for instance, wouldn't really work if they tried to do this in Hardline. How do you think they've sort of managed to nail that mode?
They're still fine-tuning the balance, but one of the major changes they did was take the RPG away from the engineer class.
Right.
Or the mechanic in this case, because it would one-shot light vehicles, and that would basically shut down car chases. And car chases are the most fun thing to do, so you don't want to do that. I'm running into some things in the beta they'll probably have to tweak, like, you know, players are getting good with putting explosives on the road and like trip mines one-shotting cars and things like that. So like they may need to even take it a little bit further, but they did a really good job by taking away the weapon. Oh, LMGs also. They took that away. and made a battle pickup, just things that would immediately shut down car chases.
Those things are now, they're battle pickups. So you can find them in the map and pick them up. Anybody can. And there's certain spots where they spawn. So
they're marked on the battlefield.
Yeah, they're marked
on the mini-map.
Yeah, you can see them on the mini-map. So it almost becomes like, to me, it kind of echoes that early Halo thing where it's like control the power weapons spawn. Because if you know you have reliable access to the RPG, then all of a sudden that helicopter that's coming in isn't like quite as much of a, oh my god, they're in a helicopter, we need to figure this out, oh my god. It's like, yeah, no, I got this.
That's great, the rocket launcher spawned. It's like the red health or something.
Well, and that plays a little bit to the game mode that you and I both loved from Battlefield 3, the Aftermath expansion, which was Scavenger, and it only appeared in that one map pack. And that was like sort of that classic style of, you started the match with like a hand grenade and a handgun and a knife, and then you had to find other weapons throughout the map. And they would just be random pickups of rifles, shotguns, and whatever.
You guys have played like hundreds of hours of all those games, and you seem to have like a real sort of intricate knowledge of them as well. Your criticisms of some aspects of 3, and especially 4, have been like echoed around this office for the past year at least. Speak to sort of what you think the problems are with 4, with Frostbite, and how you think Visceral have got a kind of a job on their hands.
So I think Visceral's doing the best job that they can do with Frostbite. There were some really interesting things, like, so DICE worked on Battlefield 4, trying to make it work, well for a year, and it got to the point where it was almost awkward, because normally I like it when devs support games, but like literally 9 or 10 months in, they were just fixing like movement mechanics and like fixing crashes for entering vehicles and using repair torches.
Yeah.
So like the Visceral engineers took a look at Battlefield 4 and they fixed some of the stuff that they told me wasn't too hard to fix. Like
just when they got hands on it.
Just when they got hands on it. Like one of them, a big one was a sound through floors bug where you couldn't tell by listening where somebody was in relation to you.
Yeah.
I talked to one of the Visceral devs and they were like, oh yeah, that wasn't that hard. We just flipped some code and it was like, we fixed it.
Wow.
Like it was actually built into Frostbite.
Yeah.
And they just didn't have the switch thrown, is what that sounds like.
That's crazy.
But then they couldn't get rid of certain things, like I don't really want to stare at a loading screen in between matches. I want to be kidding my character out. And apparently when they try to do that, it's so hard-coded into Frostbite, it basically either drastically increased loading times or kind of broke the game.
Yeah.
So I think Visceral is being held back a little bit by Frostbite. I question at this stage whether Frostbite is keeping up with Battlefield. And for that matter, Battlefront, which is now supposed to be out by winter break.
Yeah, they've got quite a lot of stuff on their hands. They're obviously DICE are not working on this. They've offset it to the California studio, and they're off in Europe doing their own thing, presumably working on Battlefront. Do you still worry a little bit? Because Battlefield 4 was such a clusterfuck in terms of like the bugs that you said were there for a year onwards. Massive problems
and
with
not even
like
was,
launch.
like is.
Yeah,
like,
it
still to
is.
this day.
Have you gone back and played
Yeah,
recently?
I went and played over the weekend just to practice a little bit, and I was still encountering just bugs I couldn't wrap my mind around, like why they still existed. Like, people, when you get revived with the shock paddles, like sometimes when you get revived, the screen is just shaking and it doesn't stop shaking.
PTSD.
Yeah, and it's like,
oh man, I'm in the shit. I almost lost it.
How is this still a problem?
Yeah.
And like I brought up my grenade launcher at one point and the tube was missing. And it's like, what? This game is now like 15 months old.
Yeah.
And these are like simple bugs, but they're still there.
It's crazy when you think that Battlefield 3 was pretty fantastic. But they've been making like solid multiplayer games for years and years. Even Bad Company, which is often thought of, they're like single player foray because they've been doing Vietnam and 1942 and like 2142 and 2 didn't have like single player stuff. But like Bad Company 2 is one of the best multiplayer shooters I played on Xbox 360.
I think it's the best that they've done.
Really,
with like the way that they had the like map and mode designs work so well together. Like the maps that were designed for Rush flowed so well in Rush, and the Conquest maps flowed like Conquest should. And then when they went over to 3, they did all this sort of purposing everything for the same, all the modes.
Yeah,
and it just
like homogeneous maps.
Yeah, and it didn't play well. No map was actually good for every mode, or even sometimes even a single mode.
And to be fair, they're split. I mean, DICE has always been trying to please two crowds. There's an older crowd that came in during Battlefield 2. They just like open maps, mostly hands-off game. Just give me the tools and let me go. If I don't meet somebody for 5 minutes, whatever. That's that's my deal. And then there's a whole generation of people who came in on console and played, the Bad Company series, and they expect a much more tight, more focused experience. Rush sort of defined their idea of what Battlefield is. And Battlefield 4, to me, the reason that it failed is because it tried to please both of those crowds and ended up with a very bland middle ground experience.
Yeah, there was maps that were big and open, but then had like big internal areas, like the close quarters map pack I always found funny. It was like, you guys are taking your unique selling point and then just saying, nah, fuck it, let's try and be Call of Duty for a couple of maps.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of dire talk around Battlefield 4 from some guys who have played the game for dozens and dozens of hours. Like, I guess my question is, clearly there are bugs that persist to this day, and that you see them and they seem to be more and more baffling the longer that they are still there. But like, taking a step back from and looking at Battlefield 4 with an eye towards Hardline, do you think that the core there should be carried over to Hardline, or like what significant shifts do you think will benefit Hardline that they're sort of planning as compared to Battlefield 4?
I would say that I think the more that Hardline can be unique, with like the heist and the hotwire modes, like the more it can actually separate itself from Battlefield as like a unique product, I think the better.
And isn't that just do something different? Like, don't give me, they're going to have Conquest, right? But don't make Conquest the thing. And don't get, I don't want to have jets. I don't want to be in the desert somewhere at a fueling station. Like, you mean like you just... So you want it to feel different, to feel not like the 3 to 4, because that was not a huge
I
change.
feel like the title is almost them trying to do that as well, to be like, yo, this isn't just 4+1, this is kind of a new experience.
Having a strong theme is really going to help a lot too. Battlefield 4 was honestly like generic soldier McDude in a field. Like, I couldn't tell you anything. Like, half the time when you looked at a faction, you didn't know who you were shooting at. Sometimes you couldn't even tell it was not your team. So, like, I see a dude with a mask, I know it's a robber.
Aaron's a nightmare on hardcore servers. It's so terrible.
This wasn't so hard in Vietnam. It's like, oh, they're the dude with the punji sticks, and I'm the guy with the Apache. You touched on how it's important that Battlefield Hardline has its own kind of theme. It definitely does have a theme different to the previous two Battlefield games. But, looking at 2014 and a lot of what happened in the headlines, a lot of like rightful anger or like distrust perhaps of the police in particular here in North America. Like, some of the trailers that were coming out for Hardline for that single player campaign seem to be touching on something that I don't think that they're particularly tonally aware of.
So it's the inspiration for Hardline is the police procedural, right? The Law and Order, the CSI, whatever. Like, they want to have that kind of television production, and so their story mode.
CSI.
Huh?
CSI.
Yeah.
A fine CBS property, right? Is that us? Yeah. Two Broke Girls.
Nailed it. So that's like, I feel like the multiplayer, side of Hardline is just too bonkers to like be in any way compared to reality, right? But when you're talking about telling stories about cops who are corrupt and cops who do good work and cops who are, interacting with civilians in this way and cops who are interacting with maybe criminals this way, that's when you really get into hitting on what is a huge issue in America, given the events of last year, is like, what kind of force should be used? And of course, so much of video games is about that power fantasy, is about being able to use force in a way that, you would never get to in real life. So I think they really have their work cut out for them, making it, like tapping into that, but at the same time, not portraying being a police officer as like carte blanche to do this, or as like, I'm a wild card, and that's good.
It's like the Dirty Harry taking the law into your own hands thing. Like, and something, like, it really looks like they were trying to create, like you said, a police procedural, and then what happened in 2014, like not just one instance, but like the incredibly awful amount of instances of this that happened in 2014 that have been brought to light, like they haven't been in previous years. Like I feel like they have, like I wonder if they have had to backtrack somewhat on what they were doing in that game, because I really doubt that they were trying to go down that line. And it kind of pisses me off that they're even trying to do it, because Bad Company is by far the best single-player campaign they have ever done. Battlefield 3, I liked it just because it was like popcorn action movie nonsense, and it was kind of rad. Like some of the bits were kind of cool. Like I really, that Paris level was really great.
So boring.
That was really
whole
good.
Thing is so rote. so
and as rote as it was, by the time 4 came along, I was like done with it. I was like, stop trying to be serious.
We all reach our tolerances at different points for that kind of stuff.
But like, I was done with serious story at 4, so I'm kind of thinking with
I didn't
with this
even.
one.
I never clicked campaign.
Really? And all the time?
I never could bring myself to do it. I just.
So we're talking all this about multiplayer, and it seems like we're all interested in hearing about the multiplayer. You don't care. You don't care. Do we have a hat trick on don't caring about campaigns in Battlefield?
Oh no!
I mean, this campaign might be interesting just because it's a little more stealthy and there actually is a coherent story to it. Other than, again, like, generic McSoldier face.
And it does seem like it's adding a little bit more player choice to how you get through a scenario, a little bit more like Bad Company did. So that is refreshing.
But let's say I love it. You know, let's say I end up really liking the single player campaign. It's going to be what, 8 hours out of 100 hours that I play this game? It's insignificant. It's hard for me to fathom how much money goes into single player budgets in Battlefield when they know that it's going to be like a tenth or less of a player's time. It might be like 2% of a player's time.
Or it might be most of that player's time, because a lot of people don't get into multiplayer shooters, and the whole Battlefield scene can be like intimidating, and it also has this a different kind of cultural significance, not just because of the cops and criminals things it's taken on, and not just because of the current events in America, but also because it is it's imitating what is one of the most popular forms of pop art, the police procedural.
Hey, guess what? There's quite a lot of CSIs.
Yeah.
On CPS.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out.
I never watch it.
So does that mean we get cowboys and Indians on the next Battlefield? Is that what's going to be the next thing?
Cowboys
oh my goodness.
Red Dead Battlefield. Make it happen. Hot collabos. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming on and talk about Battlefield Hardline. Of course, we'll have to wait just a couple of months to play it for ourselves, or you can get in on the beta right now on the Xbox One. I hear it doesn't look as good as it would on PC.
I'm not going to lie, there were some aliasing problems on Xbox One.
Aliasing problems. Exclusive to the Xbox One. Let us know what you think of Battlefield Hardline in all of its various ways.
March 17th.
Yeah, exactly. March 17th?
March 17th.
March 17th. But let us know.
St. Patrick's Day.
Right. Is it?
Yeah.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
You don't know
Let's
that?
kill some bad guys. Let us know what you think on the comments below.